What's up everybody, AnimeX here, and in this video I'll be starting yet another new series where I analyze not an anime in its entirety, but its specific characters. So I'll basically be going through groups of people, and I'll be starting with Naruto since that is a series I'm most familiar with, and that's a series that you guys as a whole are most familiar with in general. So I think a good idea for me would be start with the Akatsuki since it has a lot of good characters that I can analyze and go through. And why not start with one of the most beloved characters of the Akatsuki, Itachi Uchiha. This is the person who I have dubbed the Lost Uchiha. As you'll see in the video, there is a reason I gave him this title, and basically in the name of this video type. And I'll be talking about a couple of core parts within Itachi's character. The character's backstory and how that led to development, the character design and how that contributes to the character as a whole, the character's relationship with others within the series, and finally the motives and purpose of the characters within the series. I'll be talking about whether or not I think Itachi's ideals and morals are, how you say, realistic in the world of Naruto and in the real world. And I'll just be kind of letting you guys, let the decision fall onto you guys, what you think about Itachi and how you think I analyzed him in this video. Now, throughout this video, I want you guys to give me your opinion on certain things that I'm talking about, how I can improve and all that type of stuff, since this is the first character analysis that I'll be doing, and I do want to improve. Now, with that out of the way, it's time to get into the analysis. So, without further ado, let's get started. Now, to start off the analysis of Itachi, I'll start this off with one of the most important things for first impressions of a character, and that is the character design, and basically the demeanor of the character. Now, while this is the probably shallowest of topics in this video, I feel like it needs to be covered first, because the character design functions as a gateway to the character in the most shallow of analyses. You get a first impression of them, and you're also able to glean some valuable information off of them. For example, I'll tell you what I see and what my impression of Itachi is solely based on his appearance. First off, based on Itachi's cold stare at most people, I perceive Itachi initially as a very serious character that, unlike many other shonen villains or antagonists, he doesn't seem like the type to play with his opponents, and his goal seems to be to take you down in the most efficient way possible. I personally would say that summarizes Itachi's tactics and his style, whether that be through using Genjutsu like Tsukiyomi, or whether that be using his Amaterasu, infinitely burning flames that just will take you down rather quickly if you don't have a counter to them. In my opinion, like I said, this does line up with Itachi's actual character, as we see this line up with his initial actions and his debut fight versus Kakashi, where he uses not only Tsukiyomi, but he also tries to use a multitude of tricks and things like that in order to catch Kakashi off guard and fight him. The next major thing that I see is the Akatsuki robe, obviously, which shows Itachi's part of the evil organization of the Akatsuki, which at this point in time was something that was very mysterious, and actually seeing someone in these robes and in these clothing along with Kisame is something that surprises us as the viewer. And this sets the expectation subconsciously that he's very strong, or at least he should be. This does, yet again, line up because we see that Itachi is a very strong character, especially when it comes to the confines of Part 1 Naruto where we first see him. The next thing that I personally notice about Itachi is the lines that are around Itachi's eyes and his face, indicating he is tired for a majority of the time, or he is stressed with some larger issue. This is one feature in how it relates to Itachi that is somewhat skewed, and it can be interpreted in multiple different ways because we never really get too much of an insight into Itachi's and how he felt about being a rogue ninja, how the stress of being a double or triple agent was on him, and we never really get an insight into how he feels about it. Now, common sense would dictate that Itachi wouldn't enjoy being a rogue who his brother hates, but I think Itachi being constantly tired is not really the most valid of points. Now, you could make this argument somewhat due to him being ill for a majority of the time that he's on screen, and it's possible that his chakra and stamina are interlinked. It's due to the sickness draining his chakra and stamina as a result that might make him tired and have the somewhat bags under his eyes. Now, this is what I initially thought at first when I was just analyzing the character, but looking back and reading through some of Itachi's backstory, I noticed that even as a kid, Itachi had these lines on his face, indicating that these lines were manifestations of stress from being a person who not only had seen violence as a young child, but someone who was wise and had a deep understanding of the world and could actually put the violence two and two together and understand and really peer into the world of the adults, even as someone that was a mere 7-year-old. There's a famous quote or a famous saying that for Itachi that he basically had Hokage level intelligence at the age of 7. Now, this does play a part into why I think he had those stress lines. if you could imagine, if you put yourself in your shoes, basically imagine, instead of having the naivete of a 7-year-old, imagine having to deal with the trauma or the troubles of not only seeing a war, but basically understanding the details of that war, as well as a grown adult, and not just an adult, a wise adult that is revered for their intelligence and their ability to analyze things. That, in my opinion, will leave a great impact on any regular person. Now, that is the last thing I have to say about Itachi's design and how that pertains to his character. So it's time to segue into Itachi's development and story, and just his backstory and how that relates to how he grows and evolves as a character. Now, before I get into his backstory and development, quick disclaimer: in these types of videos, I will be gleaning some information off of the Naruto wiki for Itachi's backstory. This won't be for the most part. I won't be just reading off of the Naruto wiki. This is just for the most part a summary of Itachi's backstory, or at least a very brief summarization of his backstory. But I will get into the major points of Itachi in his life that I think shaped him as a character and as a whole throughout the series. Now, the next aspect of Itachi is something that most fans will be interested in, which, like I've already alluded to, is Itachi's backstory. Now, I know many of you guys that are watching this video have a general understanding of Itachi's backstory and what he's went through, his development as a child and all that stuff. But I will be talking about how this leads to his development as a character in a way that I think will be insightful to you. Now, we start off with Itachi as a young child. He was shown to be prone to seeing violence, making him a pacifist at a young age. Now, this affects Itachi throughout his entire life, as this shapes his outlook on the world and his life as a whole, and this shapes his aspect of strength and power as a whole as well. For example, we see later in life that Itachi, when confronted by other people who think he has murdered his best friend Shisui Uchiha for the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, Itachi gets angry at this, or seemingly gets angry at this, and actually attacks, even though he's a pacifist, and he hurts these Uchiha and putting them in their place. In Itachi's mind, he isn't just lashing out in anger against these Uchiha. He's putting this overly clan-focused Uchiha members in their place, stopping them, or at least attempting to stop them, from assuming things about people, to stop them from being overly confident in their clan and the abilities of the Uchiha clan. This anger and this lashing out that we see from Sasuke's point of view does allude to and kind of hint at Itachi trying to warn the clan of not being so confident in themselves, which would end up happening in the coup d'etat. We also see Itachi's pacifism come into play when it's time to decide between his clan and the village arises, or when his decision arises finally. Itachi's allowed to decide: take out his clan in a covert way that stops needless bloodshed on both sides with his clan and his family, or he can side with his clan and his family and attack the Leaf, knowing well that he would cause more bloodshed on both sides, whether it be through direct or indirect means, by either slaughtering Leaf Ninja himself, or be indirectly, like I said, by not attacking his clan and stopping them from, proceeding with their attack. So Itachi, who ended up being a true pacifist in the end and a true advocate for peace through strength, decided to make the hard choice. He killed his clan, and even though we see that this pains Itachi to the degree of making him hesitate from attacking and bringing his sword down on the necks of his parents, we see that Itachi's pacifist nature comes into full and it blooms. We see that he's willing to, even though he is a pacifist and he claims he wants to be peaceful, he knows that complete pacifism is something that will require violence in the front end rather than it just never happening at all. He understands that if he were to be idle and he was to sit on the fence between his family and the village, then there would just be more bloodshed, meaning that he wouldn't really be a true pacifist. Now, even though Itachi killed dozens and dozens of people, he did it for the sake of his village. And now, you may be wondering why I bring this up. X, why are you bringing this up? We already know this already. It's probably something that you're thinking, or something along those lines. And I'm well aware of this, random viewer number 445, and the reason I bring this up is because I feel like people that look at Itachi as a character don't understand that there are a few main ideas and themes that surround Itachi that I'll be getting into even more detail in this video. The main ones are Itachi's feelings for his brother, meaning the idea of brotherly love that we see being a theme for both Itachi and Sasuke, and something that we see reverberate throughout a lot of the series between Sasuke's dynamic as a whole. The other thing that we see with Itachi is basically him dealing with his pacifism along with the subtle hints of arrogance that we see. These are both things that we see touched on and somewhat talked about during Itachi's time as an Edo Tensei. The arrogance is something that Itachi himself brings up, as he, as a character and as a person, was arrogant and believed that only he himself could make the right decision for Sasuke, never trusting Sasuke to be a responsible ninja, a responsible person, and make his own decisions. And we only see this problem rectified once he meets up with Sasuke once again after being revived as an Edo Tensei. These are some things that I think affected Itachi's development. And overall, I'll be talking more about Itachi's motivations to being the way he is and how he functions in the story. And I'll be talking about Itachi more as a narrative device after we dive a little bit into what I think is very necessary to talk about. And that is Itachi's ideology and outlook on Naruto, the ninja world. Now, when we take a look at Itachi's ideology, we find that it is something that, well, as a concept is simple. When is put into practice, however, it changes and warps dramatically, or at least it isn't as idealistic or as easy to put into practice as you would think initially. We all, for the most part, understand that Itachi was a pacifist, and this is what led him to kill his clan and choose his village over his clan. He decided to save the majority rather than side with his feelings and let his feelings cloud his judgment and decision making. Something that is less known, however, is that Itachi would possibly achieve this ideal world in peace and no conflict. That's something that he, along with us, need to find out or want to find out throughout the series. Itachi, despite his flaws and false beliefs within himself, he wasn't an idealist. He knew how humans worked and how the world worked in general. If people had different motives and different goals in life that conflicted with each other, war, conflict, arguments, and fighting would ensue. Itachi knew that the most realistic way to make peace happen across the shinobi world was strength. Strength so overwhelming that no one would ever try to attempt or challenge the person enforcing peace. While on first glance this seems like something that might work, it is something that is subjecting people to a form of mental along with possibly physical imprisonment due to them not daring to attack people within the real world. And within Naruto, basically, they're being subjugated to this idea of being suppressed or being repressed and not being allowed to show themselves or show their true selves individually, right? Now, this is something that I think is flawed. This ideology is in itself not necessarily immoral, but it is flawed. It is unrealistic, and it's something that is, even though when put into practice could be possible, it's something that is an imperfect ideology. And I personally don't believe in the perfect ideology myself, but I don't think that this ideology is something that holds up when really scrutinized. Now, for example, humans are, in a sense, bold, daring, and are willing to test the boundaries of certain things. For example, I'll give you one that starts in Naruto, originates in Naruto. Madara Uchiha, someone who in the war arc had strength so overwhelming that he literally had to be written out of the story by Kishimoto, was someone who was challenged. Madara's existence should be the epitome of Itachi's ideals of peace through overwhelming strength. And while I'm not saying Madara's goals and Itachi's goals are the same, in fact I think they are very different, almost as different as black and white, I think that Madara should make the verse subjugate to his will if Itachi's goals and ideals were perfect, or they basically held up to scrutiny. Now, we obviously see that this isn't the case. Whether it be in the real world or in the world of Naruto, there will always be people like Naruto, or like other people, maybe evil people, who are willing to fight against all odds, whether that be for the good of the world or for the bad. And the idea of the odds being stacked against them makes it seem like a challenge rather than a deterrent, which is the flaw and is a big flaw that we see within Itachi's initial character and ideas about the world. We see this idea from his childlike mindset change a little bit, from a brute force tactic using strength to something more subtle by influencing people to make certain decisions, act certain ways, or think certain things. Now, there is an inherent flaw with this, and that is a question that you really need to bring up. What happens when people realize they've been deceived? How would you feel if you realized that your whole worldview and your ideology had just been warped by people higher up? Everything you had thought you knew was just propaganda, was something fed to you, and was something that you yourself didn't have the idea yourself. It was something that was implanted into your head. You would revolt. You wouldn't like that idea, right? This is something that, although this is funny to relate it to, is something similar to the Matrix, right? I'll equate it to that since that is something that is very well known as a piece of media, and it's something that can get my point across very well. When people find out that they are in the Matrix, right? Just like if people find out that they are in a Genjutsu for Itachi, to equate it to Naruto, we see that they do everything possible to get out. At least the majority of people do. We see that they don't want to be subjugated to anything that they don't have free will over. They want free will. They want to be able to do what they want, when they want, how they want. And we see that that is the flaw in Itachi's ideal, or his developed ideology. Even though it is, to some extent, more realistic because it does manipulate people rather than try to brute force them into a certain way of living or a way of thinking, we know that if the system is broken, if the Genjutsu, if the illusion of what Itachi wants to have up is broken and is basically bypassed, Itachi's ideals all fall to the ground. They come burning down. This is something that we see change, and Itachi realizes that his plan can backfire, and he learns that through becoming an Edo Tensei once again, he needs to trust in order to achieve these lofty goals of his. Itachi's character makes these minute changes in his fight with Naruto and him fighting alongside with Sasuke up until a point where Itachi dies again, and he shows the development that Itachi went through as a whole. But now, I think it's time to move on to the final segment of the video, and that is Itachi's motives, and how these are directed by basically his purpose, and basically I'll be talking about his motives, and since I already talked about his ideals, I'll be talking about how this is controlled by those. Now, when you are analyzing a character, there are many ways that they can be looked at, whether it be as a narrative device and themes that they push forward, or the purpose of them within the story, or the emotions and hype that they are able to evoke from you, and how they are able to make you feel. I would say, personally, Itachi fulfills all of these, and checks all of these boxes out from being a good character based on the criteria that I just laid out. Now, you may disagree, and let me know in the comments down below what you think, and because I am curious to hear that. Now, I'll continue with this though. Itachi's plot twist of being an actual good guy for the Leaf Village, and the realization of the scope of Itachi's actual goodness within his heart, and the pain and suffering that he had to go through within his life, hits like a truck, showing that he as a character is able to evoke strong emotions from the viewer. Itachi's main purpose within the series is to motivate Sasuke to get stronger and walk to the dark path for that strength, letting his hatred grow stronger, evolving him as an Uchiha, and evolving his Sharingan, the pinnacle of the Uchiha. Itachi is able to perform his purpose in the story by making Sasuke stronger and making Sasuke develop, showing that he can fulfill his main objective within the story in a nice, concise way. And as for the message or the narrative perspective that Itachi has on the world, is basically built on pacifism, peace through overwhelming strength, and most of all, self-sacrifice. Now, I've already laid out why I don't think Itachi's ideology or his ideals in general really hold up when they are scrutinized a lot. And if you disagree or agree, like I said, let me know. I am very interested in hearing about that. But like I said, I do not think that Itachi's ideals hold up when you actually test them or you put them to the test. These themes, though, clearly shine through Itachi's character and him as a whole. So I'll go down and breaking down each individual point that I just mentioned and talk about how and why Itachi is able to accomplish these things extremely well. First off, let's start off with his purpose of the series. Something that, as a character, is his main. That's the reason he's here. He's here to fulfill a purpose, and everything else is secondary and tertiary. Itachi as a character and as a narrative device functions to be a motivation for Sasuke Uchiha, the genius rival to Naruto, the main character of the show. This is important because Itachi affecting Sasuke has a ripple effect on the entirety of the series. I genuinely think that the importance of Itachi's character within the series is heavily downplayed, if not at least not talked about as much as I think it should. We all know that Itachi is a main motivation for Sasuke to become stronger, and this in and of itself is quite obvious. But if you go further down the web of connections, we see that along with being basically Sasuke's motivation, or along with being Hokage, Sasuke is motivation and a driving force for Naruto's strength and development within the series. Without Sasuke, not only could Naruto have died within the lore of Naruto, this would result in an overall weaker Naruto if Naruto were to survive. Or it would basically make Naruto a character that would develop at a much slower pace, or basically be a different character as a whole. We essentially wouldn't result in the same Naruto story that many people know and love. This means that if you follow the line of thinking to the top of the chain, it would be Itachi. Although he doesn't have the same amount of screen time, he is an essential character to the series when you really climb up the ladder in the chain of command when you think about it. This means that Itachi, with the relatively little screen time that he has, fulfills his purpose in a concise manner by merely existing as a character, which is interesting, since in comparison we see characters with more screen time like Sakura, who have less overall impact on the narrative of Naruto. But I'll save talking about Sakura and her character in a later video. So if you're interested in me basically dogging on Sakura for about 30 minutes, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But anyways, back to the main point I'm trying to get at. Itachi is, in a nutshell, a character who drives both the secondary character and the main character indirectly through the story. And I think that if Itachi wasn't as effective at this, or he basically didn't exist in general, Naruto as a whole would have a much slower pace. Now, I think Naruto's pace is perfect the way it is. It's fine. So I think slowing down the pace would slow down the basically excitement, and it would basically make Naruto a worse series as a whole, meaning that Itachi is quintessential to making the series better. Now, the next thing I want to dive into is Itachi's emotional value as a character, as I think this is one of the things that makes Naruto as a whole great, and Itachi is able to continue with this trend. Let's take part 1 Itachi for example, or let's start with that. We see that when Itachi makes his first live appearance, he comes up as a very mysterious and strong person, since we see him body people like Kakashi, have the Akatsuki robes on, and basically fight, like I said, people like Kakashi, who had been built up as strong characters for the most part, and could be seen to handle themselves in a fight. Itachi exudes mystery at that point, making us, as a viewer, want to learn more and more about Itachi through Sasuke and his backstory, which serves not only to develop Sasuke, but Itachi as well, with one consistent storyline, at least from the perspective of Sasuke. Now, as we see more and more of Itachi, we bleed into Shippuden, where we really start getting a lot of focus on Sasuke and his hatred for Itachi. And through flashbacks from the perspective of Sasuke, a young boy with a naive look on the world, we see Itachi as a monster, and as someone who deserves to be killed by Sasuke. And even though Sasuke at this point may have been disliked by many people and many fans, most people would understand why Sasuke is like this. He hated Itachi because he killed his clan, and in Itachi's word, he did it for no greater reason than to test his abilities, which of course would make anyone furious. This makes us, as a viewer, only see Itachi through the rose-tinted perspective of Sasuke Uchiha. So when he kills Itachi, and when he finally performs a deed, or when Itachi dies as a result of the fight, we, along with Sasuke, feel a sense of relief and accomplishment, at least on the first viewing. We then are thrust into the cruel reality of Itachi's existence by Obito Uchiha, who at this point is known as Madara. Obito tells Sasuke the true story of Itachi, and we see Itachi's actions through Itachi's perspective for the first time, opening our eyes along with Sasuke's eyes to the ultimate deception that Itachi Uchiha made everyone fall under, the ultimate Genjutsu. Even when never using his Sharingan, Itachi was able to deceive us and trick us in a way that I doubt many people on their first time viewing expected or could have possibly predicted, no matter how interested they were in the lore of the series. Now, for a brief moment I mentioned Genjutsu, and I think it's very interesting how Itachi's Genjutsu prowess ties into his actual character, or how it is related to his relationship with Sasuke. Itachi, in his time, was a master of Genjutsu, wielding multiple forms of potent Genjutsu where he could trick and deceive you at the point of a finger or an offhanded glance. He also wielded one of the strongest Genjutsu in the Narutoverse, Tsukiyomi, the Genjutsu that gives Itachi complete and utter control of the illusionary world, allowing him to control everything and everyone caught within his illusion, like a ventriloquist with a dummy. This Genjutsu and Itachi's aptitude towards it seems to reflect heavily on Itachi's relationship with Sasuke and how he feels with him. It was built on deception and lies, and deceits as well, making Sasuke believe one thing when in reality he couldn't be more wrong. Sasuke believed a false truth that Itachi not only encouraged and allowed, but Itachi himself orchestrated this web of lies for Sasuke, and with each encounter he wove another layer, bringing Sasuke deeper and deeper into the lie, all for the sake of his brother and improving him in strength, and hopefully improving him in mind and body. In fact, we see that Itachi, even after tricking Sasuke, was willing to force Sasuke to come back to the village using Kodo Matsukami, yet another Genjutsu, which is dubbed to be the ultimate Genjutsu. Now, based on this, there are multiple ways you can perceive Itachi. I choose to look at Itachi like a self-sacrificing hero in my mind. Even though he continuously tricked Sasuke, his brother, and made the person who loved him the most, or he loved the most in the world, hate him, Itachi thought he was doing good, or he thought he was doing it for his brother's own good. Now, Itachi is not a perfect human by any means. He overestimated his ability to manipulate Sasuke, and that almost backfired on him along with the rest of the Leaf Village by Sasuke plotting his revenge against the Leaf. And I personally think it could be perceived as arrogant to do some things that Itachi thought, or do the things that Itachi decided to do. In fact, I would argue that he is very arrogant for what he did, thinking that he could manipulate Sasuke's life to that degree. But overall, I would say Itachi was a very good person, sacrificing himself for the brother that he loved so much. And I would personally say that even though Itachi wasn't the greatest of human beings, he definitely was willing to sacrifice himself for the ones that he loved. And that, everybody, is all I have to say about Itachi for now as a character. This is my first real shot at analyzing characters and breaking them down individually, so let me know down below in the comments how I did and how I can improve. Now, don't be disrespectful, of course, but I really do want to know how I can improve and how I can basically get better in general. Also, comment down below which Akatsuki member you want me to analyze after this video, so I can get an idea of what you guys want to see already. You can also show your support to me by hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't already. Now, if you want to talk to me on a more personal level and basically see more interactivity from me, I'll leave links to my Discord and my Twitter down below, so you can contact me on either of those platforms. Also, if you enjoy my content to a crazy degree and want to support me in an even bigger, more powerful way, I'll leave a link to my Patreon down below, as well as so you can check out the perks, whether it be early access to long form videos, credit to my what ifs, or even input on videos and series and stuff like this, allowing for you guys to request what videos I do, and even what if series to some degree. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video from the bottom of my heart, and as always guys, this is AnimeX, hoping that this analysis wasn't too horrible, signing off.